This is a place for authenticity. This is a place for you to be honest. This is a place for you to be unfiltered, raw,
difficult
and real.
conversations about our experiences as members of the Black community, and to normalize, the mental health.
We may talk sideways in the barbershop. We talk at the bar, but most times we talking shit, and we not talking real. Because when I get cats in the office, I'm hearing the shame, the fear, and the dread.
All right, guys, welcome back to Conversations for the Culture. I'm Victoria. We got Tim and Jada in the house. We are happy to be here today. We decided to dedicate November to healing. And so today we're going to start with healing from generational curses. So, yeah. So Tim, start us out.
Man, healing from generational curses. Like, when you think about that, we often think about the predicaments that I tend to end up in are just like those of my family members, those before me, my environment. We tend to emulate those things that we see. And oftentimes, learned behavior goes hand in hand with what we think of as generational curses. And so, we want to tap into, like, what does that look like? What does it look like? And when someone tells you, like your mom tells you, if you come from a single parent home and your mom tells you, man, you're just like your dad, and says it in a negative light. How you gonna tell me I'm just like my dad, and I don't even know him? You're just like your low down dad. You're just like your damn daddy. And so those things begin to enter your spirit. And this generational curse of, like, man, I'm no good, I'm nothing, and permeates your everyday life.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it play a toll, especially working with certain clients and internalizing those negative thoughts that you got from those prominent figures in your life, like your mom or your dad or whomever else was like a role model in your life. I think it's important for us to talk about generational curses, just because as we're moving closer to the holiday season, we begin to think more about family. And like you said, Tim, with generational curses, we think about the predicaments that we continue to cycle into. Like, why do I seem to get stuck in these situations? Yeah. And being able to identify them as generational curses will kind of help us, I guess, bring it into our cognition that this is something unhealthy that does need to be addressed.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So I know just some that I've heard just from some of the clients that I see is, the curse of, I was born in the hood, I'm never leaving the hood, I don't even know how to get out of the hood, abandonment issues, I don't know if I want to be a parent because I was abandoned by mine, violence, think about, the kid, the young man who sees his father or mom's boyfriend, abusing her, hitting her. And then as he grows up and begins to have relationships, he thinks that, well, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
Exactly. So it sounds like, our dysfunction becomes our everyday function. We normalize it, and it looks so normal that you don't know that I'm not supposed to think of women this way. And that's why women have such a hard time dealing with, like they call it, the toxic man, toxic masculinity. But a lot of this stuff is just, hey, this is my normal to me. This is what I saw growing up. My dad before him did, and my mom before her, and the whole nine. And so it begets a whole cycle of dysfunction.
Right. And then, I think about the clients, that I see that are older, that are, mid to late 40s, early 50s, and they come in and it's like, I don't want to keep doing the same thing, but I don't know any other way to be. I don't know any other way to show up in the world. And then it becomes, well, help me fix this. So we try to identify patterns, but then we also, it is such a journey, because this is the way in which this person has operated their entire lives. And now at 50, we need to unlearn, all the shit, for lack of a better word, that they have seen, that they have heard. And it is truly a lot of work. It's tough, right? And that's why we get people to just give up. You know what? Forget it. I'm gonna just be how I've been. You know, I'm just gonna stick with what I know. And then, you know, even thinking about it, it's like, well, when you know better, you got to do better. But
well, let me stop you right there, Vic, because you just said a mouthful. You just said that when you know better, you should do better. Let me play devil's advocate. What if I've never been exposed to better? This is my normal everyday life. I don't know that this shit is wrong. You know, this is normal to me. Everybody in my family does this. Nobody has graduated. We all got pregnant in high school. This is what we do. So it's not normal. You know, I don't see it as a problem. This is just what everybody has done. So how can I do better?
Okay. Well, I'm going to challenge you just a little bit. If by the time they get to us, clearly something is going on in their lives. This repetitious pattern of dysfunction is causing them, you know, to just be uncomfortable. And so they're seeking help because it's like, you know, this is all I know, but it got to be something else, right? Help me figure out another way.
What do you think, Jay? I think you're talking to somebody with a higher level of cognitive ability that it's like, man, I'm finally coming to therapy. You know how long it takes some people to recognize they need therapy? They're totally fucked at that point.
Yeah, I think I think by the time they come to therapy, they might not recognize that the cycle that they continue to find themselves in is a generational curse, but I do think they're in a place where I'm ready to change as to why they're approaching therapy. They may not pinpoint exactly this is the thing that I need to change, but I think they're open to the fact, and that therapy kind of helps them to bring into their forefront that, hey, this is a pattern. You know, your great grandma was in a situation, and your grandma's in a similar situation. Your mom went through this situation. Now you're having a similar situation, you know? And so I kind of agree that, you know.
I can agree with that. You know, I definitely can. I think it's just, you know, how do we help clients, you know, get out of this cycle, you know, the cycle of failed relationships, job hopping, you know, being angry, not knowing how to handle and process through their emotions. How do we help them to do something different? And I think, Tim, I really think you spoke a word when you said the exposure piece, you know, learning that there's another way.
Exactly. I think that's paramount until you are exposed to something, a new perspective. I tell clients all the time, you're the problem and the solution. Until you're exposed to something else, you're going to buy into the negative perspective that you see, and you're going to emulate that. But exposure, like, is really key, and I think that's one of the beautiful things that therapy offers.
Yeah,
that you are able to see patterns, you are able to recognize that, you know, it's. I think if you once you look at the outcome of a thing, like, man, all of my aunts are divorced, all of my uncles, nobody has a successful marriage. I'm going into the same position. I'm doing the same exact thing. So I want to do something different. And once I started to ask myself those type of questions and be, you know, inventory my life that way, and my family's life, I started to seek out help. I started to seek, like, what can I do differently? Because I'm tired of this. This is old. Has to be another way.
Yeah.
So basically you're saying the desperation for change is what gets them through the door.
Yep. And then them actually working through and being willing to expose themselves to a different perspective really helps break that threshold and begin to break down that generational curse.
Yeah. And we're talking like generational curse, but that has so many more layers, you know, when we say generational curse, but, you know, you just have a lack of generational ignorance. as far as things that I'm exposed to about my credit, about finances, about,
Yes.
what does a healthy relationship look like? Shit, I don't know. Ain't nobody in my family ever presented with one. So it's just a level of ignorance that some people come from that you just never been exposed to. But the information is out there. The practice is out there. So I think, we have to get to a place where we're open to be exposed, and then to apply this knowledge that you acquire. Once you recognize pattern, let's acquire some knowledge and put it into practice to tweak and get better.
Right.
I guess something to think about too, as you said, putting what we learn into practice. I guess for our listeners, how would you deal with the people around you that maybe not necessarily will like your change?
Oh, that's great, Jada. That's a great point. I tell my clients,
go ahead.
I tell my clients all the time, it's like, when you really commit to the journey of change and you are putting in work and you're working on you, sometimes people around you, whether it's your spouse, your friends, your mama, they may not understand this new you. And everybody can't go with you on this journey. Sometimes, it's time to clean out your backyard and, deal with people differently, because everybody doesn't want to see you make positive changes and get to a point where you're really, living and not just existing. Right.
Yeah. But think about how scary that is, though.
Mm-hmm. That is.
Think about how scary that is, like for somebody to actually start to invest in themselves and to self-improvement, and then the people that that have been your support system all your life are now saying, man, you acting funny, man, you don't hang with us no more, you think you better than us, da 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 da, and you are like feeling like, man, I can't share this with them, the people that I've loved all my life. And that's a scary place to be in, that like I'm on this island by myself.
Isolation.
Yeah,
that is tough. That's tough, and I hear that, from clients. And again, we never want to tell people to cut off their supports, but you do have to limit, what you allow, the energy that you allow into your space, into your mind. If it is not serving you, then it is taking away from you. And so, just looking at that, how bad do you want this change, and again,
exactly.
I can't promise that everybody in your life is going to get on board and all of a sudden be happy for you, because they themselves may be stuck dealing with some generational curses, or this is all I know.
The part of, I think what you just said is very key. They themselves may be dealing with something and they are stuck. They can only see it one way. This is how we've always done it. And for them, this is the right way to continue doing it. And this thing that you consider self-improvement, that's too risky. It's safer for us to continue to buy in to this broken cycle.
Yes.
This is comfortable. Change is so uncomfortable at times.
Yes.
Doesn't always feel good. And to break those generational curses, those cycles of like, man, been locked in this bullshit for forever. Unfortunately, it's going to require you at times. You're going to lose some relationships. That's just a given. And the longer you attempt to hold on to them, you're swimming upstream. You're delaying your progress, attempting to hold on to some negative, old dead shit.
That is something to think about as you enter a space where you do want to, make changes to the generational curses and patterns that you see in your life. You have to kind of accept the fact that you have to be willing to grieve some relationships, some situations. I know we're going to talk about grieving in our next podcast, but that's a huge thing to have to come to terms with, that this is what's coming ahead if I decide that I want to choose a different path for my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard. Like I said, for a person who has a very small circle, right, to think about possibly losing people or having that relationship change, that in itself can make somebody say, you know what, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you have to weigh the outcome. Like I'm constantly and consistently getting, I'm taking an L. How much longer am I going to continue to take a L and see a L and accept having L's in my life without attempting to do something different?
Very true.
At some point I want better. I'm going to seek better. Then I'm going to do better. So it's a process, but be willing to put the work in.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And one thing I want to do, I want to normalize this for the listeners. Like, I know sometimes we think that this is only happening to me, or I'm the only person that's affected by this. I'm the exception and not the rule. And, that's just not the case. I think all of us, if we're honest, can look back to, within our own family systems. And there's some dysfunction there. There are some things that mama did and daddy did, and we find ourselves doing. And so it's something that, we as therapists, we want to be mindful of that, and we want to make sure we're doing our own work. But, it is not something that people are exempt from. Most people are dealing with generational curses from their families. And so you are not in this alone.
Think about it this way. I help clients see that, hey, no matter where you come from, everybody has a blueprint that they come from. Yep. Your parents, that's your blueprint. And so the things that they were taught and the things that they emulate, that's what they pass down. And you have to recognize your blueprint. Until you do something differently, you're going to pass down those same broken ideologies to your kids in the next generation, and so forth and so on.
That's so true.
So it's recognizing your blueprint and seeing that I want to make some renovations in this area. Okay, so what you going to do about it?
And therapy is always a good first step.
Oh, definitely.
Yes. So as we begin to wrap up, we always want to encourage you to seek out a therapist in your area. We want to help normalize therapy for people. It's beneficial. I mean, we're all therapists. We all have therapists. We really are trying our best to destigmatize mental health and issues and speaking to a therapist within the culture. This is something that needs to be normal.
Definitely. So guys, as we wrap this up, I want to let our listeners know, as always, be seen, be heard, and be understood. We out. And by the way, guys, I'd love to turn you on to this book. It really helped open my eyes. It's called It Didn't Start With You: How Inherited Family Trauma Shapes Who We Are and How to End the Cycle. It's by Mark Wolin. It's Mark Wolin. Really great read. It Didn't Start With You: How Inherited Family Trauma Shapes Who We Are and How to End the Cycle.
My name is Tim Terry. I've been a licensed therapist for the last 5 years.
My name is Jada Hill, and I'm a licensed counselor who's been practicing for the past 5 years with a focus on cultural identity issues.
Hi, I'm Victoria Traylor. I am a licensed therapist. I've been practicing for over 10 years with a focus on trauma and anxiety.
This podcast is intended not to replace a relationship with a licensed mental health professional.